In the town of Allah, where peace and beauty flourished, a dark shadow loomed over the lives of its residents. This beautiful town was not only known for its serene environment, but also for its beautiful young women. However, there was one name that sent shivers down the spine of these women: Odo. Odo is born into a powerful and feared family. Odo was notorious for his despicable behavior towards women, often forcing his way into their lives and getting away with it every time. His wealth and influence allowed him to evade justice, leaving the women of Allah to live in constant fear of his unwanted advances. Odo had never known rejection in his life, so he gets everything he wants, including women. Every woman he desired, he pursued relentlessly, using his power to make their lives unbearable. If they dared to refuse him, it comes the consequences. He is always seen walking around with his group of friends that he always sends around to do some of his dirty jobs with him as well. His string of conquests left a trail of broken spirits, and the women of Allah did their best to avoid crossing his paths. One day, a beautiful young lady named Annie moved into Allah to live with her uncle after the tragic loss of her parents. Her beauty quickly became the talk of town, and this led her uncle and his wife to have a talk with her. They showed her pictures of Odo and pleaded with her to just please tell them if she ever comes across Odo or Odo comes to her for anything, she should please report to them immediately, as they will take it up from there and see how they can protect her, because Odo is a very notorious boy and obviously he comes from a family where they can't fight. And okay, I would let you know if anything happens, but in the meantime, the uncle told her, please stay away from that name Odo. Annie replied politely and said, okay, thank you so much. Annie's beauty quickly became the talk of town, and it wasn't long before Odo heard about her. Intrigued, he was determined to make his next conquest. Annie's uncle, aware of Odo's reputation, warned her the moment she arrived. So when Odo approached her one day as she was sweeping her uncle's compound, Annie trembled with fear. Odo asked her to take a walk with him later that evening, but Annie respectfully declined, explaining that she had many chores to complete. Odo smiled and said, I'll be back again. Next time, there will be no excuses for you. That evening, when Annie's auntie and uncle returned home, she told them about her experience with Odo. Her uncle became scared and just told her to please stay away, and when he comes back next time, she should run inside or just keep telling him she's busy. It became a burden to the family. Odo didn't stop there. He came again another day while Annie was sweeping and taking care of the compound. This time around, he was so angry and spoke to her very rudely and said he would like to take a walk with her alone, and she declined again. This got Odo very angry, and he said he knows what to do. She would not know peace in this neighborhood until she accepts to take a walk with me and come visit me at my house. Annie smiled and looked at him and said, no way, I am not coming to visit you at your house. She went inside and shut the door. When her uncle and aunt got back, she told them again about her experience. This is becoming out of hand, her uncle exclaimed. What do we do about it? The uncle thought to himself and said, okay, I have a friend whose daughter has been through a lot as well in the hands of Odo. I would call him and see how they got about the situation, or what was the end of it all, how they went about it. So that day, the uncle couldn't rest until he called his friend, and he went to visit his friend and spoke to his friend about the current situation his niece is going through. And the friend told him, I'm sorry, I wish I had a lot to help with, but the truth is there is really nothing much you can do. It's either you ask her to go somewhere else to live. The uncle replied, I'm the only family member she has left. There's nowhere I could take her to. He said, well, there was really nothing much we could do for my daughter. After Odo had his way with her, we went to the police, we reported, but there was nothing they did. Instead, I got threats day and night, and I was told that if we continue filing a report against him, our family would suffer for it greatly. I started getting a lot of threats, and that made us just drop the case against Odo. And since then, he left her alone, but he had done a great damage to her. My daughter no longer feels okay to go out in the streets to walk. Odo defied her without her approval, and this has become a big mental issue for my child to go through. I watch her deteriorating every day in her room, and it's hard for me. I pray your niece doesn't have to go through such. I really hope it doesn't get to this. All you can do, like I said, my friend, is take her out of this neighborhood. Whenever Annie went to run errands for her auntie, Odo and his friends would wait for her along the street and then start calling her names. On some occasions, they would drag her by the arm and Annie would start screaming and shouting until they would let her go and then keep laughing at her. This became so uncomfortable and unbearable for the girl, but Annie is a girl who has a confidence up high. She kept going out and never allowed Odo advances keep her indoors. She said she was going to face him head high, and there is nothing Odo can do to her that would make her stop enjoying her day, because every other lady keeps running away or either stop going on errands because they are scared they might meet Odo on the road. But for her, she said she would keep going out and there is nothing that would happen. On this fateful day, they pushed her and she fell to the floor and bruised her legs. When her uncle learned about this incident, they begged her from going out of the house except she's accompanied by them. So they told Annie to please stay indoors, but Annie refused and said she couldn't let Odo keep her indoors while she lived with them. Annie's uncle went to the authorities and reported Odo to them, but they did nothing. Odo just kept partying with his friends and having a good time. One evening, Annie went out for a walk. Her auntie and uncle were just in the living room having a good time when they got a strange phone call and asked them to come pick up Annie. Annie was lying lifeless on the street thanks to some group of men who came to rescue her and quickly rushed her to the hospital. The uncle rushed into the hospital and saw Annie in tears. She was so weak that she couldn't even talk. It was then the doctor had to explain to him that Annie had been gang raped by Odo and his friends. In the process, Annie fainted and they dumped her on the street and went away thanks to some good Samaritans who rushed her to the hospital. As days went by, Annie wasn't getting any better. A few days later, Uncle was called to come to the hospital that it's an emergency. On getting to the hospital, Annie had given up. She died. The pain was just too much for the family to bear. They couldn't hold it back anymore. The uncle rushed out of the hospital in anger and went straight to Odo's family. He first went to the police station where he had already reported a case, but he got there and they kept on throwing him from one department to another. So he took it into his hands and went to Odo's house. When he got to Odo's house, he wasn't allowed into the gates. They rushed him out and bundled him out while they were just up laughing at the uncle. That evening, Odo thought he is above everyone and everything. He thought riches and influence is all he needed to do whatever he wanted to do and get away with it. But little did he know that something was coming for him, something that even money couldn't make him escape from. Something that his influence would have nothing to do with his escape route. He never saw this coming. As Odo slept that night, a dark cloud covered the whole of Odo's building. His house, thunder kept striking. He didn't know that this is the last night he would ever have peace. Something came for Odo that night, and that thing became the beginning of this whole story, and that is where it all started. Watch out for part 2.